Welcome, everyone, to Enlightened Masculinity. We're back again with Ryan Macanufo. I'll introduce him really quickly. If this is your first episode, welcome. Leave us a review. And I'm one of your hosts, Yogi Chris, PhD, a.k.a. Chris DeVilbus. I'm the founder of Ninth Limb Yoga. I'm also a doctor in science. You know, we don't have to get into that. It's some of the nerdy engineering sciences kind of stuff. You know, I was really good at it, but I left it to teach my brand of yoga, and that's what I do across the world. This show has a co-host. His name is Akash Inti Katakam. He's from Montclair, New Jersey. He's a biotech research analyst and a yoga teacher at one of the biggest drug dealing companies in the world. And we'll leave it unnamed, a little mystery. You can message him if you're curious about that in that industry. And we also have a guest. This is the same guest from our last episode. His name is Ryan Macanufo, a.k.a. IMC Rooster. Why do they call him IMC Rooster? Because he's under the umbrella of IMC, Integrated Martial Arts Concepts, which is the brand name and brainchild of our teacher, Arash Sapardibazar. And so with that, I'd love to hand it over to Ryan. What's going on? What's new? What are you playing with these days in your relationships, spiritual science, man?
Okay, man. I really like that question. I really do. It opens up a lot, so I'm just gonna dial it in as much as I can. Lately, I've been doing lots of practicing new things. I've been enjoying my skill, my craft inside of these new relationships in which I've cultivated. And now within those, I'm getting to enjoy in a freer aspect, I should say. I'm getting to express myself in such a free manner. It's just less and less fear. I think at each level, I think that's one thing that's consistent with each level that I get to is I'm less scared of the things that used to trouble me, or a girl, a person, or a business transaction that used to bother me or stump me is not going to be a problem anymore. Okay. So I'm now talking to some of my girlfriends and expressing myself in such a way and getting such closeness, and I get to learn from these new relationships and then go communicate what I'm learning from these relationships. I don't know. This is so cool. So I get to have this amazing conversation with this beautiful woman, get all this amazing compliance, all of the things that all the other guys would want in a relationship and even just in a conversation. Compliance, all of that. So I take that. I take that with me. Okay. That's in my bat belt. That's like part of me. So when you're talking about the character, bro, I have been building and just expressing like my my reach for my protection for the people that I care about is far more vast now. They can feel the protection and the security that I provide. And that's got to do with my communication. So one thing we have to ask ourselves as communicators is, are your words creating distance, or are they drawing closeness? Because with students, I can teach them how to punch and how to kick with their words, and then also how to block and dodge and maneuver and when and how to strike. So in these relationships, I get to have this good conversation that I've been trained myself to do, but not just that. I get to take what I have built with me, and it's all over me like cologne. This is what I'm getting ready to say. So the genetic code is all over me. By the time I go out, if I do my energy and things correct, it is pumping off of me. And everything that I say is literally coming from a place of real ethics. I've worked for years to be a real legitimate alpha male that's not going to overstep my boundaries, violate you socially, be aware of my surroundings, and being the leader in how to make and call people subjectively on whether or not they're being rude. People love it when you can handle yourself correctly in social situations.
And just as a side note, we had this guy on the other day. His name is Danji, and he did this are you familiar with ASMR?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could do ASMR. You would have a good voice. You're a little loud, but if you could talk softer, you have an interesting vibe. It's a very it's like a romantic kind of bad boy kind of but like very assertive. But it's like,
romantic. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. Anyway, so you were talking
okay.
you had some big terms there, and I was hoping that Akash could break some of that down for us. You know, you're talking about compliance a lot. You were talking about, communication is a big thing. You were talking about the role that you're playing here. And those are three really big concepts to just like dive in on the podcast on. I'm wondering, Akash, what do you think that he's meaning by these things? Can you make sense of this for us, or what would we need to know to make sense of these three concepts to get going from here?
Yeah, so I can define compliance at least at a high level, and again, I'm sure there's different levels to this, and I'm sure I don't want to put words into Ryan's mouth, but the high level compliance, it's a technical term, if you will, in game, and it refers to someone doing something that you ask at the very high, like the very base level, or agreeing with what you say, and acting in a manner that's consistent as such. I missed the other two words, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, compliance, communication, and the role that you're playing here. So yeah, what would you say what do those things mean? How do you tie compliance, communication, and the role you're playing here? How would you tie that together?
Yeah, so I think talking about the role a little bit is like understanding, and this is something that we really touched upon in the Tabiat event itself, was creating the character or the role for yourself.
Shout out. And really, the Tabiat event is an event that Arash did. It's called Tabiat, so that's what we're referring to as like this 3-day training event.
Yes, and so it's coming back to creating a character that's consistent with what we were talking about earlier, your ethics, your values and such, and really living the life as if you're a character in a movie, right? So that's the role, if you will, that you're playing. You use your communication to interact with the environment around you. And communication is, let's call it symbols. Really, it could be verbal symbols. It could be written symbols. It could be sensory, tactile symbols. It could be any of the 5 senses that we have, and some may even call it the 6th sense of psychic symbols as well. So we'll just call it symbols. So you use your symbols to communicate with the environment around you, for them to comply with you, or to act in a way that's consistent with your will, or a way in which you want you want to create this character in. Go ahead, Ryan.
I want to throw something out there real quick. You just sparked something in me. You exchange your symbols for the compliance.
Yeah.
If the symbols are valuable enough.
Yeah, the compliance is a symbol.
Yes. So if your symbols are valuable enough, it will trigger inside of that, survival mechanisms and everything.
Wow. That's so magical, man. You are just a magic man, because if your symbols are powerful enough.
Akash, it's all of us.
Ryan's speaking magic. I mean, what does that mean if your symbol is powerful? Like, I studied information theory for a long time. If a little bit of information has a lot of information packed in it, it creates a big effect on the data. And so a symbol, if I introduce a symbol, like let's say, a really powerful word or a seductive word, or maybe a word that's very good for her, like she likes that word, versus another word that I would use with a different person. But with her, that word is powerful. And so the symbol and how I deliver it creates a big effect. And
this is
clients that maybe
yes,
and it's coming back to that symbol actually is something that it's within that person, right? So we kind of glimpsed on this in the last episode, right? So Chris, you were like, oh, I saw when you were talking about defining terms, like I lit up. Well, it was because I had a memory that was when you said those words, or when I was saying those words, it triggered that memory within myself. And so when we exchange symbols, what you're really doing is exchanging prior memories with people, right? So this particular words that you use enables you to think back to prior memories, or it triggers those prior memories in a pattern, if you will. I mean, you could call this kind of like a music that is either benefit, or it makes a person feel good, bad, what have you.
When you say memories, do you mean that like you're basically drawing on symbols that are in your memory banks?
I think so, unless you're defining new symbols themselves, like new words
Okay. I could get on board with that. Because I think some thoughts we're creating them. And so they're not everything that's communicated is a memory, but the bank of symbols that I'm using except for the ones that I create in the moment. I mean, sometimes I do invent words or invent gestures that I haven't seen, or maybe whatever. It's possible to reinvent the circle, even though you maybe don't want to. But definitely, like, the symbols had to be learned. That's the whole idea, that communication is learned. You're not, as a human, even though you're the best communicator species on Earth, if you're not around other people when you grow up, you don't learn how to communicate. You don't invent language out of your neurology. Like, you have to be exposed to it, learn it, and then you draw on it as you have urges inside that you want to symbolize and then send to somebody. And yeah.
Good communication is learned just like bad communication.
There it is. That, in short, there it is.
Dude, we are good.
Well, so on a new level of relationships, bringing it back to relationships,
right.
There's like a lot of my research involves, like I've learned my own way of communicating, but I also learn how she communicates, and she has a verbiage and gestures, and different gestures mean different things for her than with the next girl, and really learning a dictionary for each person. And
yes,
my value as a mindset provider, as someone that's more stable in my emotions and therefore my communication and my conclusions about life, that I am giving her real estate in my memory, because I can only learn so much language. I can only learn so many words and so many different people's dictionaries. And to deeply learn a person that is, and her uniqueness, that's my real estate, and I only have so much for my life. And what would you say you give her? What would you say about this idea?
First, let me ask you real quick. You just said you give her real estate in your mind?
Yeah.
Mind? Okay, sorry.
She does too, and she learns like my language, but she seems...
it's more your job to learn hers.
Yeah, I'm curious. Let's go into that, because I haven't worked that part out yet. She does learn my language. I think I learn it more intentionally to seduce her. I learn it because I care about her, and I intentionally learn her language. When she learns my language,
you learn her language, and she takes on your language.
There it is.
Both of you learn each. Yeah, but she takes on.
She admires it and just like takes on my words and and little idiosyncrasies. And so I see there's a difference there. Like you said, she receives it and just like forms to it. Whereas
and this is their game. If you don't, absolutely. You sparked it in me. So that's the inner game. If you have to see yourself as the prize, that's part of the pheromones coming off of, like, when I'm being dismissive. Okay. That's the energy. I'm okay with myself and my surroundings. My relationship with my surroundings, if you come and watch me, I'm very in tune, and my relationships are very solid with my environment. And that's going to communicate, whether it's to a man, a woman, a child, or beast. You and your internal dialogue and how you can express yourself and execute yourself in the moment, that's got to do with how you've been programming yourself over the years, not just the bad programming. Because your responsibility now as an artist, as a teacher, as a learner, as a student of the truth, you must take these things on, push yourself to understand more, because to not would be robbing yourself. That's almost what we were doing in the past with not knowing, these laws. Basically, we talked at one time about being victims of nature because it was happening all around us and we didn't understand how or what was causing it. So, that's pretty much being a victim. And now we have these newer understandings, and I can come on a podcast with you guys and literally learn and take in what you guys have worked so hard. You recognized that you had bad programming, and then you started communicating with yourselves. You started communicating with yourselves and saying, if I continue to communicate with myself this way, down the road, this is going to be the result. I remember 2 years, and this is important. I want to tell everybody about 2 years into studying all this. I wasn't that good. It was like 2 years into it. And I just kept telling myself, like, yeah, I guess if I studied the mystery method, like, really hard, which is a book that a lot of people should read if they want to learn more about the dating game, how to execute certain things, contact me. We can go over into a lot more of it. But this understanding, I had to learn to be a lot more okay with myself. And that's where it comes from, spending time with you guys. You guys recognize that. And so now with your communications with yourselves, you're working on yourselves every day. So even another year from now, it's going to be even further because of the regular, it's not going to be the same tape playing. If you keep working with mantras and certain things, your relationships are going to be different next year, because you are in turn going to be different. So I finally decided, what I'm saying is, at year 2, I finally decided I'm going to study this book. I'm going to study the knowledge. I'm actually, rather than just being able to regurgitate it well, I'm going to be able to show people. And that's when the real work began. And then I started seeing massive results. And I was like, I mean, everywhere around me, everyone was like, you're a good communicator. And that was like the beginning of being aware of these new levels we were talking about in the beginning. I started to wake up and I was like, wait a minute. It's the feedback from the world telling me that I'm doing good. And that kind of, that feels so good.
It's interesting that you say that, for example, because I mean, I've been training with Vince really for about 2 years now, and Rosh for about a year now. And I went to my first Toastmasters meeting, for example, and they were like, whoa, I was like one of the best people in the room. And they were like, dude, you're like 25. Like, what? Like, there's some like C-suite level people in the room and like big company people, and they're like, what? So it's cool. I've noticed these things, and it's very subtle. You don't notice it in your day-to-day interactions most of the time, because we're studying this all the time, and we're really delving deep into it, challenging ourselves, pushing ourselves, grinding the axe, if you will, as much as possible.
So let me ask you a question, Akash, and we'll start to wind it down, and so maybe this will be like the final question, but in your relationships, as you practice this communication and delivery, the transmission of ideas and receiving of symbols and all of the, esoteric way that we talk about this sort of stuff, what are you practicing? What's on the level with you right now? Like, where is your research and interacting with females, and how is it contributing to your spiritual practice? Like, where are the overlaps? Give us your frame. Like, how are you looking at this whole thing of like the animal mating game in humans, and then you're spiritual, you're a yogi guy, and you have your own spiritual beliefs. Like, what are you playing with right now?
Yeah, to me, I think there's a lot of power. I think sexuality is the strongest power that human beings have. So the reason why I approached this subject to even begin with was, how do you harness this power for creation and to create whether it be businesses, amazing communities, good energy, good environments, etc. It's really, how can you harness this energy for creative purposes? Historically, I mean, it's been used for, and whenever I say I study seduction, people are like, oh, that's bad. And it's like, well, the reason that they say it's bad is because whomever had used this energy beforehand was using it for negative, right? And so it's recognizing that it's not the tool itself that's flawed, it's the person who uses it. So I seek to, all of these communication techniques that I learn and applications, whether it be with women, men, whomever, is to bring out the best in people. I want to be able to pull on, because there's certain times where pulling on a string, adding a little bit of sexuality to a conversation or some such thing really pushes someone that much further.
It sounds like you better yourself too. The way you were describing it, it sounded like you were saying is like a personal betterment practice, that you practice seduction because it's easy to, maybe manipulate, or it's easy to go a dark route, or not even a dark, I don't want to say, but like go a destructive route or a harmful route. That's what I was getting from what you were saying. I was a little surprised when you said that you bring out the best in people. I think that's cool. Would you say that it's a personal betterment practice, the practicing of the seduction game for you? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's a reflection. One of the things that we talked about earlier is like, as within, so without. So everything that I'm doing outside of me is really, it provides me with good energy or that good feelings, So, I mean, going out and about, I take pictures with women and such. And one of the big things for me is really to, show that I go out there and I put myself out there and I'm approaching beautiful women, which I know so many men, they don't do. And it's just because they're scared and such. So it's like, I want to be that example, not only for others, but for myself in some ways. I'm like, look, I know this is like, it's not an easy thing to do. You're putting yourself out there. But fuck it. Like, you've only got one life to live. And this is the character that I seek to create, that, I seek to live. Please.
Yeah, be in that character. Ryan, man, as Akash is talking about the fear that other guys are having when they go and approach women, and which is a very real and biologic thing, as we know that anybody that studies evolutionary biology, half the book, you'll finally get to it, where like the reasons why men are afraid of that. We're in your, as we're winding this down, like how much does fear need to be conquered in that endeavor in your, if what you're doing in life is like the book of Ryan, there's the mystery method. If we had the Ryan Macanufo method, like how much is the conquering of that fear relevant, or am I putting too much emphasis on it by even asking the question?
Very good. I do have the answer. I have the answer. So as we know, this is natural. Like when this happens to a guy, I think there is a lot of emphasis that's put on it. Does the fear need to be conquered? Personally, I think in a mindset, no. I think we need to understand that that fear is going to be there. Just go ask any of the masters. Be like, dude, how did you feel like that? He'd be like, my balls were in my throat. Like, it was crazy. And I just jumped in the ring of fire and I felt it. And I just opener, A1, A2, and just started going on with my craft. We're going to experience fears. The fear that you're talking about is a genetic ingrained. There was a reason, because tribes back in the day were only probably 50 or so people. So out of those women, out of maybe 20 women, 15 of those were going to be pregnant, already had babies, old, taken, and there might be one or two that are actually compatible for us, the single men in the tribe or whatever. So if we walked into another tribe, there is a chance if we saw the female or the daughter of the tribal leader and we're like, dun, 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 like we want to engage her, this system was in place so that we would watch ourselves for survival, so that we wouldn't come up and be like, hey, and like come grab, and all of a sudden their buddies come and hit you over the head with the rock, and that's the end of your existence. So to counteract that, nature was so clever to give us these triggers. We get these triggers confused because we see some of those similar triggers out in the outside world, so we think it's not good. People have anxiety and the fight or flight mechanism triggers off, and it's because the fight or flight mechanism is happening at the wrong place. It was in place so that if a spider is on you or a saber-toothed tiger comes in the room, you can react. That's what it's there for. But if you're at the DMV and all of a sudden you're like, man, and you just start having a reaction, okay, that's it not working for you. So in the fear mechanism that Chris is talking about, I think that we need to understand that it's natural. It's actually not going anywhere. And by accepting it, then we actually beat it. By getting into the situation and then putting it in our past, we actually overcame the fear. You actually do overcome the fear by going up and doing it. So you're not going to get over it in the beginning. You're going to get over it after you do it. So that's the key. So that is not going anywhere. It's going to be there every time. It happens to me. And sometimes I still fail. I swear, I still eat my own words. I'm like, oh, I just missed that. So I have to work on that. It's not going nowhere. And just like you guys and who I learned from, these are things that we're going to keep continuing with. If anybody wants any help with any of this, of course, reach out to me. We are all here. We have the skills to help people. If I have anything I want to know, I feel confident in coming to you guys.
Ryan, you gotta get the Instagram started up, man. You said you're on Instagram. What's the Instagram profile?
Rooster of the World. Come check me out, everybody.
Hell yeah, Rooster of the World on Instagram and Ryan Macanufo on Facebook. We'll put the link in the description. I want to say one last point before I end it. And you guys both helped me distinguish this idea of the genetic fear and then all of the rest, the other fear. And of fear, there's the genetic fear. You're supposed to be afraid of the tiger, and you're supposed to be afraid of approaching the beautiful woman when you don't know who she is. Does that mean you don't act? I don't know. If the tiger is there, I might be afraid, but if I'm protecting my girlfriend, then, so there's always a reason to go into that fear. But, the distinguishing of the genetic fear and then the nonsensical fear, and in the spiritual context, just to kind of tie it off with a little spiritual bow, let your light shine. The fear is inhibiting your light from shining. Let your light shine. You must eliminate and completely conquer all fear, which is nonsensical in your life. And to do that is exactly how Ryan said, I believe, my opinion, mindful IMC, silent flute. Those are all my gangster symbols, my spiritual gangster symbols. To conquer the nonsensical fear is to take action and do it anyway. And when you do it and you go on the other side of it, on the other side of the timeline, and it's in your past, you're no longer, over repetition, you're not afraid of it. So that takes some discipline and some courage, you know? So that's my last thing. Any closing statements either of you would like to make?
All I'd like to say is keep up, thrive, stay sexy.
All right, Morphe.
Perfect.
That was awesome, Akash. You're great. I love you, man. And Ryan, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in like
always.
Hell yeah. Namaste, everyone.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Audience. Namaste.